You've tried it, face the wall, time out, gadget off, no TV tonight, no dessert. You followed through. You stayed firm. You did exactly what parenting advice said to do. And instead of learning, the meltdown got bigger. The shutdown got deeper. The behavior didn't change. So now you're left wondering, why does this work for other kids, but not mine? If you're raising an autistic or ADHD child, there's a neurological reason consequences don't always land the way people expect. And it's not because your child is spoiled. Before we begin, a gentle reminder, we are not therapists or medical professionals. We share lived experience and research-informed insights around nervous systems and neurodivergence. Always seek qualified professionals for individualized support. This isn't about never having boundaries. It's about understanding how neurodivergent brains process cause and effect. Ready? Cause this is Kind Parent Collective. Less perfect parent, more real one. Traditional consequences assume regulation. Most consequence-based parenting assumes something very specific, that the child had access to self-control when they made the choice. It assumed they could pause, think through the outcome, and decide differently. But many autistic and ADHD kids struggle with impulse control, emotional regulation, and executive functioning. If a child hits, yells, refuses, or explodes during dysregulation, they often weren't choosing calmly in the first place. They were overwhelmed, and when consequences are applied to a dysregulated brain, they don't teach, they escalate. When the brain is in survival mode, imagine your child is already overstimulated, too much noise, too many transitions, too many demands. Their nervous system is on edge. Then something tips them over. They shout, they throw something, they slam a door. From the outside, it looks like misbehavior. From the inside, their brain is in fight or flight. Now you remove the gadget or send them to face the wall. But when a brain is in survival mode, it doesn't process lessons. It processes threat. So the consequence feels like another attack. That's why the meltdown gets bigger instead of smaller. ADHD and delayed consequences. For ADHD kids especially, consequences that are delayed often lose meaning. Executive functioning differences make it harder to connect behavior now with punishment later. If a child loses screen time tonight for something that happened this morning, the neurological link may not stick. Instead of thinking, next time I'll choose differently, their brain often just registers frustration. ADHD brains are driven strongly by immediate feedback. Delayed consequences don't always build the connection adults expect. Autistic kids and literal thinking. Autistic children often process rules very literally. If a rule feels unfair, inconsistent, or emotionally charged, they may fixate on that instead of the lesson. For example, if you say no TV because you yelled, they may focus on, but I yelled because you didn't understand me. But my brother yelled yesterday and didn't lose TV. But it wasn't yelling, it was loud talking. Instead of internalizing the behavioral lesson, their brain loops on perceived injustice or misunderstanding. The consequence doesn't build reflection, it builds rigidity. Time out isn't always regulation. Traditional time out assumes that isolation leads to calm reflection. But for many autistic children, being sent away while dysregulated increases panic. For some ADHD children, isolation does not calm their nervous system. It amplifies restlessness or shame. If the goal is regulation, connection often works better than separation. That doesn't mean rewarding behavior. It means co-regulating before correcting. A dysregulated brain learns best when it feels safe again. Gadget removal, the double-edged sword. Taking away devices is one of the most common consequences. But here's the complexity. For many autistic and ADHD kids, gadgets aren't just entertainment. They're regulation tools. They provide predictability, focus, dopamine, escape from sensory overload. So when you remove the device during dysregulation, you may unintentionally remove their main coping mechanism. That doesn't mean unlimited screen time, but it does mean recognizing that removal may escalate instead of teach. Consequences without skill building don't work. Here's the deeper truth. Consequences don't build skills, they build discomfort. If your child lacks emotional regulation skills, impulse control, or transition flexibility, punishing the behavior doesn't create the missing skill. It just increases shame, and shame doesn't improve executive functioning. Neurodivergent kids often need skill practice during calm moments, not punishment during crises. It's not that boundaries don't matter. Let's be clear, boundaries absolutely matter. Structure matters, consistency matters, follow-through matters, but consequences alone are not the same as teaching. A boundary might sound like,
I won't let you hit. I won't let you throw things.
And then helping regulate, instead of, you hit, so no TV. The first protects safety. The second assumes control. Neurodivergent brains respond better to safety plus guidance than to power plus punishment. Why it looks like it works for other families. You may see another child lose a privilege and immediately adjust behavior, but you're not seeing the neurological differences underneath. Autistic and ADHD brains process reward, punishment, and impulse differently. It's not about stronger discipline. It's about different wiring. Trying to force a neurodivergent brain to respond like a neurotypical one often creates more friction, not more growth. The emotional toll on parents. When consequences don't work, parents often blame themselves, or worse, others blame you. But what if the issue isn't firmness? What if the strategy simply doesn't match your child's nervous system? You are not weak for noticing that punishment escalates things. You are observant. What tends to work better? Neurodivergent kids often respond better to immediate feedback, clear structure, predictable routines, calm, steady tone, repair after rupture, and most importantly, regulation before reasoning. When the nervous system calms, the thinking brain can re-engage. That's when learning happens, not during peak emotional intensity. The long game. Consequences aim for short-term compliance. Skill building aims for long-term independence. Compliance is quiet, regulation is slower, but regulation builds resilience. When your goal shifts from stop this now to teach the skill underneath, your parenting strategy changes, and the tension in your home often softens. If consequences like timeouts, facing the wall, or removing gadgets haven't worked for your autistic or ADHD child, it doesn't mean you failed. It may mean the strategy wasn't designed for their brain. Here at Kind Parent Collective, we believe parenting neurodivergent children requires understanding nervous systems, executive functioning, and regulation, not just enforcing rules. You can hold boundaries, you can stay consistent, and you can do it in a way that teaches skills instead of increasing shame. If this resonated, subscribe so more parents raising autistic and ADHD children can feel less alone navigating strategies that don't always fit. Because sometimes the shift isn't being stricter, it's being neurological. And if today was rough, you still did enough. Catch you on the next one.